Good morning, and welcome to you, magical people. Whether you are healers, mystics, seers, sages, magicians, we have a lovely, juicy episode of Magic in Mind in store for us today. We are exploring the path of the healer, and we are entering the phase. Well, we're in the phase of the waxing moon. Technically speaking, from the new moon on, the moon is waxing, it's growing until we get to the full moon. But through this week, towards the end of the week, we'll be at the half moon phase. I really love it that we're in this sort of half moon phase as we enter the autumn equinox, or the spring equinox if you're in the southern hemisphere. There's this real energy of balance coming through at this time. It's an opportunity for rebalancing, for restoring some things, for releasing others. And through the course of today's session, we're going to be exploring, it could be considered to be a tension between preserving balance on the one hand and pursuing harmony on the other. Good morning, Suzanne. If you are joining me live, please do say hello and good morning. Hi, Suki, lovely to see you. You've got lovely rain there, spectacular thunder and lightning. Yeah, I know that a lot of people have been having storm weather, haven't they? And I do feel as if this storms, they always feel to me as if they restore balance to a certain extent, and you get that sort of really humid weather and then the storm comes in and it freshens up afterwards. There's a little bit of almost like healing action in process with thunderstorms, which I think is quite a good metaphor for the healing. Hi, Candice. Don't worry that you can't stay. Look forward to catching up with you on the replay later. The healer is often seen as a path that can be gentle, which sometimes it can be. It can be gentle. There is an association with well, tell me what you think here. Because of the gentleness, almost like a weakness or a fragility about healers somehow, as if they can't sort of cope with the world as it is and they want everything to be happy and joyful, which is totally against what I have experienced working with pretty much every healer I've ever met. That healers are actually hardcore people, who see the world as it is and say, and it can be better. It takes incredible toughness to follow and pursue the path of the healer. Candice, I can see that you have got Fayu there, so absolutely fine, because I know that you need to go. So you've got Fayu reverse. So if I sidetrack momentarily and you are watching the recording, that's just because for people who are live, we're going to do some readings towards the end. I'll be looking at 6 power runes, and it just so happens that Fayu is one of them, and it's lovely when we have people who come live because it means that can pick up on the energy, like my seer, my healer can pick up on the energy of what's coming through for those people. Often they bring that like quite an important insight that's important for others as well, so listen out for that if that's important to you. So if you're here with me live, then just hold off sharing your runes unless you need to share them because you're going off, which is fine, Candice, no problem. Just so that we can look at that first piece about really exploring this path of the healer and also looking at the planetary movements. I've got Urus for Suzanne. You're already feeling that storm energy, I know. 1 until 3:30 this morning for you. Thor was busy. He was busy through the night, wasn't he? And Thor is interesting because I do think of him as being a healer in many ways, and also epitomising this theme that we're going to be talking about of when do we preserve balance. So Thor is the caretaker and the protector both of Asgard, the realm of the gods, and of Midgard, our world. And he wields his hammer, and his hammer can be used to fight off enemies, with these big walls, and he's there and he will defend against threat. So he'll preserve the balance. He preserves the balance of power between the Aesir, the sky gods, and the Jotun, the giants, who all come from the same family of beings at the end of the day. So he's there and he preserves that balance. But his hammer is also a hammer of blessing. He blesses the land with fertility, with new life. And so he offers transformation as well. This pursuit of harmony, let's say, that we're going to be discussing a little bit more as we move through. So first of all, I want to say that one of the things that I love about the Northern tradition is that the whole of the Northern European tradition, and so I'm making this a general statement, you can test it if you want to afterwards, the whole of the Northern European mythos explores the balance or harmony between preservation, preserving what was before, maintaining the balance between forces that need to be balanced so that one doesn't take over the other. The most obvious example of this is the very beginning. We have ice and fire. Suzanne's distracting me by saying that I look gorgeous in red. Just a moment while I take that in. I should take that in. Thank you, Suzanne. And then I'll get back onto ice and fire. So Ginnunga Gap, the great void at the very beginning, is the void in which nothing exists except ice and fire on either side. And so as ice and fire come together and the worlds are born and everything else comes into being, it is an interplay between ice and fire who evolve. These elements literally evolve. You can see all other elements as being children of those first two elements. And fire is a moving energy, a transforming energy. It creates, it destroys, it brings about change. Wherever it goes, it will bring about state change. So heat will melt, or destroy and turn into something else, release carbon into the atmosphere. All of those things it's transforming. Ice preserves. It keeps, it maintains. I was listening to a program on Radio 4 yesterday about bacteria. It was absolutely fascinating. And it was talking about the most ancient forms of bacteria and some of the diseases. I think it was E. coli they were talking about, and saying that they will survive in ice. Literally imagining a time where we send out little pods, with cellular organisms out into the world, like the Earth blooming like a seed pod and sending stuff out, that it would actually be more likely for that to be much smaller organisms capable of survival in much harsher conditions than human beings are. But that was my mystic playing with that idea, let's say. Let's get back onto the healer. So we have then, coming on from that, stories like the god Balder, who dies, goes down into the underworld. There is this cycle of trying to get him back to preserve the old order. He is a god of light, he is a god of the sun. So his mother is trying to get him back. She tries to stop it from happening in the first place. She's trying to preserve the status quo as is, but it keeps going. The cycle keeps going. She is not able to put brakes on, even though the Queen of Heaven herself is not able to put the brakes entirely on what has been predicted, what needs to happen. He has to go through this journey, this cycle. And in so doing, he ensures that another event of transformation, which the gods try to stop from happening, is Ragnarok. So Ragnarok is the sort of end of world scenario when Odin and a lot of the older gods will perish. And a lot of the myths are about attempts that are made to defer this event, to stop it from happening. And this tension between the Jotun, the giants, and the Aesir is one of these examples. They're sort of, we're moving towards Ragnarok, but we can put it off for as long as possible, is I think what Odin's doing, really. But when Odin dies, and when the other older gods die, there will be a rebirthing, and Balder will be amongst the gods who return to the surface. So this tension is always there around preservation and transformation, and how transformation, Balder's transformation into being dead, means that when everybody else dies, he will preserve the order that comes back up by then going on and living. So it's this cycle that we see. We see it with the Yarrow rune between winter and summer. We see it with the Fenris wolf, who is born and has a wonderful blossoming friendship, but he grows so fast, he transforms so fast, and it's realised he is transforming so fast that he will devour the worlds. And this is a key piece for us as healers, because healers are so beautifully attuned to picking up on this tension between preservation and transformation. What needs to happen in the moment? Well, if we go in this direction, the balance will go too far. The force of transformation will occur too quickly, and all of the structures that are there will be destroyed. So this is the Fenris wolf. The Fenris wolf epitomizes that. This he is growing so fast that he will swallow the worlds, and he will swallow everything, and the balance between transformation and preservation will not be maintained. And so the gods work to bind him. They don't destroy him, because that's another act of transformation. No, they bind him, which is an act of preservation. But again, the forces are working the other way in terms of saying you can't preserve the status quo forever, much as Odin attempts to. He builds walls, he works with Loki, he works with Thor, he works with all of the other gods to try and maintain the status quo so that Ragnarok does not occur, but Ragnarok is inevitable. And healers can feel that. They can feel the pull of transformation, and they can feel the pull backwards, of preservation all of the time. And their job is really to find that place of wholeness in the center. And what they have to do in order to make that work is to really dig into their the other parts of the magical identities. So the seer, has the ability to decide in the present moment. The seer taps in, but they don't just feel all of the things. They say, and this is the one. That's the seer in action. It's not necessarily the healer. The healer feels all of it. They feel the balance. They feel the ways that it could go, and that can be quite confusing and challenging for a healer, because sometimes there is no perfect. There is just the choice. So the seer is needed to make that choice. Then the mystic is there to explore future possibilities. So the healer may become quite overwhelmed by present possibilities or not be able to see a way out. The mystic offers those opportunities, and then the seer helps with the decision. The sage self provides the ability to learn from the past. Okay, so you're feeling this, but what's happened, what's worked well in the past? That comes from the sage. And the magician offers the ability to take powerful action. The healer and magician combination is incredibly powerful in our lives. So one of the things, before we get into the planetary movements, which we're going to do so momentarily, I'd really love you to feel into, through the course of this week, is what decisions are tugging at you, offering possibilities for preservation or transformation, and literally thinking about it in that way. So where is it, I might need to preserve the status quo? It could be as simple as there's a border, in my yard that needs to be done, and there's a bush that's sort of growing in one particular way. I remember talking to somebody last week who said, we took this action, we just decided, we cut this hedge back, and we did it, and now we're looking, we're just really regretting it, and but we did it, so they decided on the path of transformation. I'm going to take the path of transformation. Now, we talked it through, and she was like, if I just left it, it was getting unwieldy, it didn't look right, it wasn't right for the space, but we cut it back a little bit too far, but actually it's going to grow back, and it'll be okay. So we took the right decision. And that's like a tiny example, but you can feel it, that sort of impetus to preserve and the impetus to transform. And first of all, we just don't have time in the day to do every single transformation that as healers we might feel is possible. In the moment, I could do this and I could do this, and that can be quite overwhelming and frustrating as healers. So it's calling in and saying, what's the committed action that I can take? And is this just an instinct towards, what does my instinct towards preservation say? When I think with the Fenris story, I've sort of tried to give that example of when we try to move too fast, we can dismantle the entire structure of the thing and lose the value. Use the entire. It's like chucking out the baby with the bathwater moment. It's like, right. How many of you have ever done like a beautiful drawing, or you've created a story or something like that, and then you've looked and you've gone, no, that's terrible. Chuck it away. Throw it away. And sometimes that is a powerful thing to do. To release entirely something and say, I'm letting go of that, it's not going to happen. But sometimes we lose the gem within it, and that's why the healer will be able to feel all of those different possibilities and say, okay, what's happening here? but then the action comes through. So on all of these fronts, it might be quite big. I felt into it and I was like, actually, it's quite big life stuff happening for me, where my instinct to preserve and my instinct to transform are competing with each other rather than working together with each other. It's a really important secret for the healer. So let's look at our planetary movements, and then we're going to do some personal readings a little bit. So you can say, wonder why I want to preserve things more than transform. And that's really interesting, Suki, and that's a really good question to ask yourself, that this is why there is a difference between preserving balance and pursuing harmony. So the instinct to preserve can also be maybe I need to have a perfect 50-50 split between preserving balance and pursuing harmony. Perhaps that's what I need to do. Whereas the pursuing harmony piece takes a longer view and says, well, it might just be my season of preservation and that a season of transformation is coming. Now, it might be that taking no action right now is the most powerful thing that I can do in order to stand and find peace and serenity. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more when we talk about Isa as a spirit guide. And it might be that then I'm drawing in energy. I'm seeing to my own infrastructure, and then I'm moving into transformation. And this is a very important piece. So we can think about this in terms of balance. Might be thinking about the scales of the balance. Might sometimes come and it would be like, okay, what's the action that I can take in the present moment that will make sure that I am spending part of my day preserving and part of my day transforming. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's perfectly valid way to move forward. And the Gibo rune, if you have the Gibo rune as a spirit guide, for example, might talk about that. I need to find more balance within what I'm doing. But it might be that we think about it in terms of harmony, like an orchestra. So imagine that you have a conductor who is saying, I am interested in balance in this piece, which means that I am going to get all of the instruments to play at the same volume for the same period of time, each, or they're all going to play at the same time, because otherwise it wouldn't be balanced, because one would be out of it. That wouldn't work. This is a place of harmony. How do we create harmony? Which means that sometimes some instruments aren't playing at all, or they're softly and they're supporting, and others are in the lead sometimes and they're pulling forward. It reminds me of them. Have any of you ever listened to Tubby the Tuba? Maybe I'm just really old that I know Tubby the Tuba. I love Tubby the Tuba. Look it up. It's just so it's brilliant. Let's leave the rest of this. Let's just talk about Tubby the Tuba. No, look up Tubby the Tuba. So Tubby the Tuba is a beautiful story about a tuba who is always the support, and the rest of the instruments laugh at Tubby the Tuba. Never gets to do a solo, and he wants to do a solo. He really wants to do this solo. And it's a story of him going out and finding his song. I won't give the rest of it away, but this idea that every instrument, every piece of our repertoire, every avenue of exploration might have its season in the moment, and that if we are saying it will always be the first violin that leads the melody in the orchestra, means that we never get to experience some of the most beautiful, uplifting forms of music, because we've become constricted. We are preserving a way of doing things rather than opening up to what might else be possible. So when we're feeling into the runes that you choose, or the runes that are available to us through the planetary movements, they can promote us feeling into this balance, this dance between preserving balance and pursuing harmony. So it's not as simple as saying preserving balance is wrong and pursuing harmony is right, or the other way around. It's actually just about saying, well, how do I access my seer, my mystic? How do the runes work with me to support me in exploring this, and really reaping my power as a healer at this point? So the waxing moon is a time of possibility, of growth, of drawing in the healer self, of becoming more powerful on that path. So let's look at how that might be possible for us. So we've got a few little pieces to explore. First one is on the 21st. On the 21st of September, Oud's chariot, that's Uranus, is going to move back into Largu. So Oud is in retrograde now. She's on retreat. So her energy is a little bit less like powerful, potent, and pushing. She's this is like the hand of fate, like in the universe is the way. Like there's a northern tradition energy that we're obviously feeling through the planet. It's not quite the same. You can go and you can look up what Uranus means within the Western astrological system, and that's interesting and fine. But once we start to really feel into runic astrology and into northern tradition astrology, you feel into what is it that Urd and by default Vathandi and School, the other Nornir, what do they offer? And they offer this the hand of fate moving forward, these sort of inevitable events that need to happen that we are then responding to. But it's a little bit more gentle at this point. And so what I would like you to be thinking about in terms of the path of the healer is that she is moving from the sowing the seeds of the new, the time of transformation, which we've talked about before. We were using that through the magician phase, back into Lagus, into the energy of water, which is both a gateway of death and release, and of life and regeneration and regrowth. So there is a change, but because it's a gentle energy, it is a slow change. It is actually a beautiful balance between preservation and transformation. So what I'd love you to feel into is the story of the world tree. So the world tree, Yggdrasil, is an evolving being. Now, Yggdrasil, it was originally Ymir, a Jotun, then he is slain, he becomes a tree, all of the stuff is happening, the 9 worlds are birthed upon him. He also has, I say he, actually Ymir is normally a hermaphrodite in my view, so we could say they. Where was I in my train of thought? Yes, so this being is evolving all of the time. Nidhogg, the world serpent, Nidhogg, the serpent at the bottom of the tree, not Jormungand, the world serpent, is gnawing away at the roots of Yggdrasil all of the time. So there's a lot of change and transformation happening upon Yggdrasil. And every now and then, the waters of Weird will flood. They will sort of flood and everything will be washed away. And then Yggdrasil preserves. Yggdrasil holds within those things that we preserved. So there is a story at Ragnarok, some humans will be preserved within the branches of Yggdrasil, and then it's preserving. But Yggdrasil is also preserved through Urd, who places white clay upon Yggdrasil, sort of healing aspect, but also through the waters of Weird itself. So sometimes there is this quite potent uprising of the waters. We are experiencing that a little bit with where Hela's Chariot is in Perth at the moment. But on a daily basis, the waters of Weird rise up as dew. You know, just similar to the way that our waters in Midgard function, in our earth function. They rise up through a process of evaporation, and then they coat Yggdrasil as dew, and then they run gently down the bark. So this healing, preserving action. So we have Yggdrasil is being transformed and being preserved, and is also transforming and is also preserving. So I like this. So when we feel into this energy of Lagus, we want to feel into the energy of gentle preservation and gentle transformation, of cleansing and releasing, and perhaps feeling like when there are events that can feel tricky or difficult for us, feeling into that longer term, that very gentle healing potential that's available to us through Lagus and through working with the Nornir as well through the course of this period of time, which would be it's going to be in Lagus for quite some time now, so we won't be talking about Urd's Chariot again for I want to say months now. I don't think it's even weeks, I think it's months now, while she does her retreat motion. Then we have on the same day, on the 23rd, we have the lovely autumn equinox, so this time of balance with Kinaz, and we are in the very centre of the half month, so the 2-week period when the sun is in Kinaz. So Kinaz here is a rune of fire. Here we go. Rune of fire, rune of transformation, rune of change. No, it is the sort of physical change. So this rune brings in our instinct to transform. So Urd's Chariot is moving from the instinct to sow the seeds of transformation into the instinct of preserving the intentions that we have set by sowing those seeds. So there's a sort of tenacity and a holding on and a releasing and a saying, I've set my path now, I'm following it. But the sun is offering us the deeply transformative energy of Kinaz. So when we want to transform, we can feel into the power of the sun more. When we want to preserve what we've already set, the intentions we've already set, we can work with Earth's chariot more. And that is obviously happening on the autumn equinox that we're right in the middle, or the spring equinox if you're in the southern hemisphere. In which case, yes, that will work for you. And you're right in the centre here with the Kinaz rune. Now, the other thing that is happening is that we are moving out on the same day. We're moving out of Saga's hall. So Saga, her hall is Sokvabek, the sunken bank. It's got that watery energy to it. Really still feeling that Largusi energy. It is the power of the word. There is preservation through the keeping of histories and knowledge in written form, but also the energy of transformation through receiving poetic wisdom, through telling tales in the moment around the fire where we change them and we tweak them. Very potent and powerful form of healing is to take archetypal stories and to feel into where they might need to change or be tweaked slightly to offer new healing paths. I discussed this with the lovely Kay Gillard over on Instagram on Saturday night. So that video is still available. I think it's on her channel, but you should be able to pick it up from mine. If you can't, we'll post something so that you can. So we were discussing healing story and its potency at the autumn equinox then. Now we're moving from Sokvabek into Forseti's hall, Glitnir. And Forseti he's a judge, but he is a mediator god. So you have gods like Tia, who are upholders of divine truth. And then you have Forseti. Whenever I go and see Forseti, he is so much a mediator. He says, okay, there's the ideals about this, about how we can preserve harmony and how wonderful that will be, but there's also practical action. He listens to both sides of the story and he says, what's the solution here that's going to work? How can I find that balance there? And he, again, if you think about him as being a healer, so if you're somebody who feels like, I'm on the path of the healer, but I'm struggling to make those decisions, Forseti is an excellent patron to work with, because he does say, I've listened to both sides and this is my judgment. This is my judgment. He leverages the path of the healer to feel into the possibilities, and then he draws on his seer and he says, that is the way forward. And his word is obviously, law in the context of the what's the word I'm looking for? I want to say moot, but that's not right. No, it's gone from me. Northern tradition, when people come together and the laws are spoken at that point. So he makes those decisions. So he is wonderful for finding balance, for finding decisiveness, and for saying there may not be a perfect solution, but in order for us to move out of the stalemate of where we are right now, which is an option. Let's just preserve the cycle of vengeance or animosity or the disagreement or the conflict. We could do that. We could just preserve the conflict, or we can move forward. We can move into the path of transformation in order to, find something different. And I think he sort of works on the basis that as long as all parties agree that anything is better than the current situation, we can move forward, and we can work through this. He's pragmatic in that sense. So we have a pragmatism here, and I think that's important because healers can feel all of the different possibilities and they're so attuned to wholeness and possibility. It can be so difficult for them to make decisions. They almost become paralyzed in some way by their own knowledge of a situation. And that ability to say, I can be a healer and be fallible at the same time. And somebody needs to take the decision, sort of stand in sovereignty is important. So Forseti offers that. The only other thing I wanted to mention at this point, because I think it's important, we've got some sort of competing energies here. If you're struggling a little bit and you're going, I'm really struggling with the sort of up and downness of the energy, and one minute I want to do this and the next time I'm doing that, and oh, I feel like I'm riding the roller coaster of life a little bit and I'm transforming and I don't like it. You know, I want to be in that sort of preservation place. You know, we have Tear's chariot in Gibo to support us a little bit with that. So you remember I said that Tear is like the upholder of spiritual truth, of divine truth and spiritual truth. He is in Gibo, which is the rune of gift giving and exchange. Let me just find my Gibo card. I should have found these before. Here we go. So his Gibo here is one of the spirit guide runes we're going to be working with. So Gibo offers that energy of motion, of forward motion. You can see it like a wheel, like a water wheel that's turning the very energies of weird itself. You know, it's sort of saying we need to keep going, we need to keep moving. There's a sustainable action here of giving and receiving. So there are the laws of reciprocity are held by the Gibo rune. So we can work on the really just feeling into the freedom that the Gibo rune offers to us when we allow ourselves to just go, okay, I am simply in momentum. This is what's happening at the moment. I'm in momentum. I'm not losing all of myself through taking this action in the moment. I am taking the next step, and I trust that the energies of preservation and transformation are going to keep me steady and keep me sound. I'm not going to lose myself through this. So he's really useful if you're finding this a little bit challenging, a little bit much at this point. So let me know at this point the runes that you are working with, whether you are working through this full lunar cycle with one rune. I'm working with Algiz all through this month, which I'm really enjoying. Whether you're working with a rune for the week, perhaps for the waxing moon phase, or for some of you it's the rune for the day. Let me know what runes you've got. I know I've got Candice and I've got Suzanne. You have mentioned your Uru's rune. Meggie, you've got Iwaz. Let's pop that one in as well. Then we'll go through our six spirit guides runes, and then we'll see what else comes through for you. Yeah, so apologies if I've missed anyone in the chat who has already shared. I do try and keep an eye on them as we're going through, but just give me a shout if I miss anyone, and that's absolutely fine. So we're going to work with 6 spirit guide runes. Now, when I think about the runes, they work as spirit guides in a teacherly sense, perhaps a little bit more than in a personal like psychopomp sense. So we might work with a patron deity, or we might work with a totem animal spirit. Some of you might be familiar with doing with that, with like a personal guide who we feel as if this guide has come to support me in the next part of my journey. They're there as like a personal healer or teacher for us, and there's almost a sort of inherent benevolence that we can feel in that relationship. As I'm saying that, there's about 1,000 caveats coming through my head. The runes are teachers of particular types of mystery. So they are neither I am in it entirely to support this person in like what they want in their desires, and this is important, no, nor am I there to sort of push them in a direction that they don't want to go in, and to reveal truths that they aren't ready for in this moment. I am an agent of fate, is the way that I see it, an agent of the turning wheel, and I have come to offer teaching and wisdom and power to this person should they choose to accept it in this moment. And the reason that I love working with the runes so much is that for those of us who either we are living on the Northern European land, or we have Northern European ancestry, or we speak one of the Germanic languages, we are working with the runes all of the time. They are inherent for us. They grew from our relationship with the land and with time. It's how they evolved, and they evolved into meaning. They evolved into our ability to communicate with each other through language. So we're working with them all of the time, and they can sort of help us move through these different layers from the meaning that I'm making in the current moment through my language, all the way down into those like multiple layers down into the primal relationship with spirit, like deep, deep in the earth, or whirling through the sky. They help us with that. So the 6 runes that we're going to work with are, let's start with, so we've got Lagu. So we've talked about Lagus a little bit already. So if you think about it in the context of the healer and the context of preserving balance or pursuing harmony, With the Largus rune, obviously you've got that visualization that I gave you of the dew rising up and then just flowing down the world tree, like very, very gently, very restorative, keeping the bark sort of moist and yeah, releasing old energies just at the surface level almost, so that the Drazzle can keep on growing and keep on expanding outwards. So it offers us the possibility of rejuvenation. This is the sort of transformation piece of rejuvenating, of increasing our life force, of bringing new energy into intentions that we might have set, but they might not have fully come through yet. Think about the bark on a Drazzle as being like the pattern of the web of weird itself. That's been set, and then the waters are running through it, they're activating that energy. So we can activate our intentions through the Largus rune and bring energies to them, but we can also work with this rune as the rune of water to release and cleanse old stuff. So, I was talking about, we might, a fiery energy might say, I wrote that poem and it's absolutely awful, I hate it. And the Largus energy might say, actually, where is what is needed for this poem now? And what is needed for it now? Should I read it aloud to myself and see what lands there? And perhaps there's some words in there that I need, but not the whole thing. It helps us to move into a gentler transformation with a project or an intention that we have set for ourselves. So that's our Largus rune, remembering that it's got that Urd's chariot energy behind it as well. Then we have the next spirit guide rune that wanted to work with us today is Bacano. I could feel Bacano stirring last week, but it wasn't quite ready to emerge. So we've got the Bacano rune here, which is, it's an earthy rune. It's often considered to be a rune of the great goddess of that sort of earth goddesses, and it has, similarly to Largus, it has an energy of sort of potent life-giving power and an energy of death and release. We might talk about the womb and the tomb. Is very much this energy of Bacano, this sort of fecund energy, but also the composting energy. It's almost like the earth that fosters that Largus energy within it, fosters the seed, nurtures it, looks after it, and then all of that energy returns to it. So we have that with the Bacano rune. So there is a rebirthing energy that is possible for us. For those of you in the southern hemisphere, you're going to be feeling that maybe with the spring a little bit. For Bacano, it can still be that sort of childlikeness that we can get in the northern hemisphere as we feel into some of the festivals that are coming through. We can feel that, that literally, how do I get a spring in my step comes through with the Bacano rune. How do I find that innocence and that youthfulness? All of those things are possible. But we can also do some deep composting work with the Bacano rune as well, of deep release, of, this is too much, it's too hard. I'm seeing a vision here of somebody with their hands, just plunging their hands deep into the earth, as it is, please, take these burdens from me at this point. Take this old way of being from me at this point, so we can have the composting and the releasing that comes through. And we can also have Bacano as almost like a cocoon in which we winter, in which we hibernate. So for those of you who are on the sort of preserving side, remembering that hibernation is a preserving function. It preserves life force when we don't have access to a whole big amount of it. But also healing work is being done. Deep healing work is being done on sort of mental levels as we sleep. So if you've got your Bacano rune, you may well want to be thinking about a little bit of hibernating through this time, or making plans for hibernating. So as you're seeing the winter months coming through, where is my hibernating time within that? Okay, the next rune that wanted to come through is the Feyre rune. So Candice, I know you had the Feyre rune and you had it reversed, didn't you? So that actually ties in quite strongly with that hibernation energy, almost like pouring the Feyre energy into the earth and saying, where can it be protected? Where can it be protected? Not because I want to keep it, but because I want to nurture it and nourish it. So this is an important distinction between Athala and Feyre. So Athala is our estate. So you might think about it as being the difference between a long-term maturing account or an investment in a house, where you put your money into a stable, the thing. Thank you, Maggie. Maggie has mentioned it as the thing in relation to the gathering where Forseti is in judgment there. So there's always somebody who's in judgment. Thank you. So yeah, where we store our assets, and this is wealth assets, but you can think about it so many different ways that are going to keep us and sustain us in the long term. Whereas the Feiyu rune is also a rune of wealth and abundance, but it is more like your instant access savings account. So it can be, I know that, we've got Yule coming, we've got the winter months coming. I'm starting to create my fund for gifts that I want to give to other people. I'm starting to make those plans for myself. I don't know, thinking about my diet a little bit, eating more green vegetables, having my vitamin D, all of those things, because I know that the winter is coming, and that's just sort of like a short term. There is an intention to release that energy out into the world, and then that will be it. The pleasure of the moment, the life force of the moment comes with the Feiyu rune. So Candice, if this is upside down for you, there's a think about that. Think about what's coming and the energy that you might need to have that. If it's upright for you, it might be more about bringing those moments of pleasure into your everyday life, both moments of preserving. So you might think about rituals and practices that you had perhaps when you were a child that you want to bring back into your life, or about transforming. What are the rituals, acts of deep happiness and joy that weren't part of your childhood experience that you want to bring into your life now? So creating new moments. And Feiyu rune, just think about it literally in terms of, I think about it as like being Huzzah. What brings that sense of warmth and pleasure and connectedness? All of those things come through with the Feiyu rune. So what can you do there? Right, we've talked a little bit about Gibo. So I'm just going to, that is coming through as a guide for us as well. So let me just find the Gibo rune once more, because I have left it in the pack somewhere. Tusk, I hear you say. Tusk. Just talk amongst yourselves for a moment while I'm doing this. Here we go. Here's the Gibo rune. There we are. So the Gibo rune we've talked about in terms of Forseti, and in terms of the movement of the wheel. The wheel keeps on turning, and it can preserve. It can actually. It's great for maintaining a balance between preserving and pursuing, between transformation and preservation. It comes through with the Gibo rune. But I also want you to think about it in terms of, it's a rune of contracts. So it's the idea that although we might not have it's not like a tit for tat. I'm going to give you a jar of jam, and I expect a jar of jam in return. No, it's not that type of thing. It does relate to expectations. We were talking about money before. Gibo does have an important part to play, because Gibo works on the agreed value of any given thing. So why is it that this jar of jam is like, I don't know, 89p, and this jar of jam is £6.78? Why is that? And Gibo works on that basis, because it works on all of the beliefs that we have, and all of the values that we hold around these different things. And it says, it's not always like for like, but there is an underpinning expectation that Gibo helps us to work with. And so because it has this energy, of giving and receiving, which is sometimes, no, I'm going to keep that, preserve, and sometimes I'm going to give out, transform. I might be wanting to change the dynamics of a giving-receiving relationship. Heaven forfend, maybe this year I'm not going to send a card to that particular person. La, 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 la. Because that relationship is not serving me anymore. And I just need to think about that a bit while, and not just like mindlessly send out. Lots of people don't send cards anymore, do they? But I quite like sending cards. But yes, so it's that moment of going, do I want to preserve the relationship as is, or do I want to do something different? Can be one of the things that we feel into in terms of exchange and what we want from a relationship and how we do that. But the other piece is around binding and exchanging, because Gibo will preserve. If you think about it as being contracts, it is one of the most preserving runes there is, because it will say, our society has agreed that through the exchange of this sum of money, this person will own this land and whatever's on top of it. You know, that's a big thing. You know, so it does binding and contracts. You know, it is part of its energy as well. So you want to feel into that in terms of the transformation that's possible through the energy of Gibo and giving and receiving, and the preservation that's available through the energy of Gibo. Okay, talking about preservation, next rune that we have is the Issa rune. So this is the rune of ice. The word I comes from it. So there is a very strong preserving energy with Issa, probably more than any of the other runes, but it isn't just a preserving energy. So because it is the rune of ice, and I talked right at the beginning about the dynamic between fire and ice, we can feel into, you know, if we want to bring a stronger sense of preservation in, we want to explore the realm of preservation, Issa is a great rune to go to. But it doesn't just do that. What it offers to us is what I'm going to call the balance between serenity on the one side, so peace. Now, Issa can provide us with great peace. If you think about a landscape of ice and the calmness and the peacefulness and the serenity that is inherent within that place, where the light's playing over it and this whiteness is extending on all sides, and there can be a deep serenity. If you think about when the landscape gets covered in frost or in ice or in mist, we get that peace, and that does come with Issa. But it also has within it tenacity, the holding on, the strength that comes with all of this, the tenacity for holding on to itself, which is and can be a power, a force that we need to manifest transformation. You know, I talked about that partnership, and we're going to finish with the Yarrow rune so we can feel into this more strongly. There are times when everyone else might be saying, no, we want to do this, we want to do that, and it can be the Issa rune that we use to really dig into that and feel that and say, I am totally serene in the decision that I have made to move to a different country. You know, the Issa rune almost says, I have already made the decision and I'm not going to go back on it. So it preserves the decision that you have made, which allows the transformation to occur. You don't second guess yourself. You don't say, oh, well, you know, maybe I can do it next year, or perhaps it was a foolish idea after all and I should stop following my own instincts on this front, and people need me and all of that. So there is the commitment that we need sometimes to transformation. We can feel that within the Issa rune. We can feel it very strongly within the Iwaz rune as well. It like the staff that pulls us forward. But the Issa rune is that serenity. There's a really lovely practice. I think it was Martha Beck who suggested it, where she says something like, at the end of the day, just do the mantra. And she says, beautiful mantra, and it's just like, she says, I am meant to be at peace. Oh, I could say that over and over again. It really sort of rings in your heart as being true. And the Issa rune offers that to us. So the Iwaz rune might be like, yes, I'm going to move forward and it's all great, and it's that type of like almost like a stubbornness. The Issa rune is like a stubbornness. It's like a smiley stubbornness. Yes, this is true, but we're still doing it. No, it comes from the Issa rune. So the final rune that we're going to play with as a spirit guide before I check in the ones that people have shared is Yera. And Yera is the rune of the year. That's what its name means, Yera, year. Even though it begins with a J, it's that like Jungfrau. If you know the mountain, the Jungfrau, it's the Y sound. It's what our ancestors, that's how they would have pronounced their J's. And it is the balance here between winter and summer, between ice and fire. They're moving around each other all of the time. And what Yera invites us into is this sense of recognizing that we might need to preserve balance in the present moment in order to pursue harmony in the future moment, or we might need to pursue harmony in the future moment in order to preserve in the present moment, in order to you get what I'm saying, in order to preserve balance in the future moment. So this is an example that I'm going to give to you, and it's quite a complex example, but I think it's an important one. when we think about the path of the healer, people can often think about somebody, who is like, they might be a nurse or a doctor, or they might be an energy healer or a counselor. But the healer is a much bigger suite of vocational professions than that. And I was thinking about some of the ruptures in society, or some of the things that we know need to change in society, and the way in which healers can feel that, and they know when something is wrong, but it's that decision making process that needs to happen. So I want you to imagine a boardroom, and imagine the boardroom 50 years ago in the Western world, and still in some boardrooms today, let's be honest, that is full of old white men. I remember somebody saying pale, male and stale, which is quite funny if you think about it, but obviously, we're mature people here, so let's just say, there is a particular demographic of people who are in that room making the decisions about whatever it is their sphere of power. And the healer will feel simultaneously, probably, that needs to change because other people's voices are not being heard, and this is going to endanger balance. In the long term, it is going to promulgate a privilege, boundaries of privilege, and the same group of people always benefiting the most. All of those things, they will feel that. They will say, things need to change, and they will feel at the same time, how would that change impact on an infrastructure that might not be ready for it? If we just got rid of all of the board, or we said, right, we're going to keep one of the board and move everybody else in and just change it, what does that do in terms of the experience that's in the room, in terms of preserving the traditions that are important to us in this project or country or culture or whatever it is, the knowledge base that is there as to how things work. And the problem is that the how things work piece includes how things work that we don't like, as well as how things work that we do like. And if we just say, right, we're going to get rid of everything, then you risk the structure itself imploding and falling apart. And healers feel that simultaneously, and they say, how does that work? And so what the Yarrow rune does is it says, okay, let's hold on to a vision of the future and take the actions that we need to take in order to get to that future. So the wheel is turning, and the healer can feel if the wheel is turning. Now, if you are a healer and what I have just said resonates with you, that you've ever experienced that before, that a power infrastructure is feeling imbalanced, you can tell when changes are being made that are actually changing the system from inside, and when changes are being made that are simply lip service and they're not having a change at all. One of the things that we really need to be able to embrace in terms of embracing our magic is that ability to trust ourselves and to say, I cannot feel that motion of Yera moving or the motion of Gibo moving. I can't feel that moving action, and so the preservation piece is outweighing the transformation piece. And it's trusting those instincts with the healer. So the Yarrow rune invites you into that, to say, in terms of the changes that I feel are necessary either in my life or in the world, do I feel as if we have momentum in the right direction? So that's the instinct piece. Last week we talked about that does not mean that you therefore have to fix everything. There are going to be things in your world that are not as you want them, and yet if you try to fix everything as a healer, you will burn out. No, so the next piece is to say, what is in my power to change, and what is in my realm, what is within my purpose. Right? This is part of my purpose to do this. So if that's something that you go, wow, yeah, I can really feel that, I can feel the path of the healer strongly within me, but I don't have those two key pieces in place, get some help to find them. This is one of the most important pieces with the healer, is to say, healers, they can be immensely powerful once they've mastered those next steps, which are held in other parts of the magical identity, around that decisiveness and that taking action from a place of decisiveness. So, you know, yes, my coaching roster is quite full at the moment, but there will be some places coming up next month, October, November time. So if you're feeling like actually I could really do with some help to develop this part of me, and to give my healer a little bit of support, then drop me a line and let me know. So finally, let me just check in. Is there anybody that we haven't covered? We talked about IOS a little bit. So Meggie, I did actually mention IOS, didn't I, in terms of the staff. So for you, that is that almost calling into that tenacious energy. It's like imagining the staff. You plant the staff first and then you pull yourself towards it. There's a little bit of saying what you're going to do and then trusting that you're able to pull it. Thank you, Suki, with your keen as, okay. And then pulling yourself towards it, and trusting that when I've put my flag in the sand, help will come, support will come, and then I'll pull myself towards it in that way. So there's the tenacity with the Iwaz rune that comes through, the recognition of the strength, the real self-belief that comes through. I'm able to do this, which includes the Iwaz rune is bringing in support for you at that point. There's a sovereignty, isn't there, that comes from holding the staff. The power of the wanderer, the sovereignty of the wanderer is what's coming through to me with that for you. Suzanne, you've got the Uru's rune. So that's really bringing in for me the Urd's chariot energy, that sort of combination of Urus and Lagus coming through. I'm just feeling like stone and water, and the way in which that current of water slowly shapes the stone without the stone necessarily even knowing that it's happening is coming through there. It's that real underestimation of the power of the Lagus and the power of the healer that can come through, because it's not loud or in your face, but it is there, and it's coming through more and more through that slow, steady trickle that becomes a waterfall is what I'm feeling there for you. And then Suki, you've got the Kinaz rune. So Kinaz, very powerful at the moment. Soon as Chariot and Kinaz moving towards the spring equinox, there is a real Kinaz will call out that desire to transform, that desire to make. And what's important for you is recognizing that sometimes with the Kinaz rune, we can get stuck in the ideas phase. We can see all the stuff going on. We get stuck in the ideas and all of this is happening. But the Kinaz rune wants us to manifest. So you could be doing anything. You could be tidying your front room, or making a cake, or thinking about the gardening, or doing something like that. But imagine that while you are doing that, you are transforming the world. Now, as you're doing whatever act it is that you are doing, feel, do your connection in with the earth, do your connection in with the sky, feel that power flowing through you as you do this act. And it's almost about claiming the power that comes from the healer and the magician working together, allowing the Kinaz energy to flow, and really feeling into that, claiming your powers. I am a creator, I am a transformer, I heal with my hands. I have every time you perform any form of physical act, you are moving billions of atoms, bacteria, all of that stuff. Literally, as we move through the air, we are transforming the pattern of the universe forever. And it's sort of letting that happen a little bit, Suki, and saying you don't always have to have the answers first. You don't need to know where you're going and say, right, I'm very intentionally taking this step and this step and this step and this step. Move into the act of transformation itself. Darcy, you have got Gibo. So we have we looked at Gibo in a couple of different scenarios. We looked at it in terms of binding, we looked at it in terms of contracts, we've looked at it in terms of exchange and creating that cycle. So I'm going to leave that with you for now. So I think that is everything for this edition of Magic in Mind. Thank you so much to those of you who have joined me. Let me know how the path of the healer is landing with you, what questions you might have about this healing pathway, because we've got after this week we've got 2 more weeks working with the healer. So if you have any questions, let me know. If you're watching this as a recording, do #replay and post post your questions, share what your runes are. Now, there is so much collective wisdom in this group that, yeah, call on it. This is part of the path of the healer, is collaboration. So lovely to see all of you. Mwah. Thank you, Suki. I'm glad that you enjoyed the session. I will see you all very soon.